The second moment of administrative power I'm trying to put my finger on, closer to what Barbara calls systemic, is the power to manage how social relations appear to be mediated. The circulation that realizes capital and at the same time lends a realization effect to the social relations of capital accumulation, so that the logics underpinning liberalism and capitalism appear to cover all possible or desirable modes of collective existence. And so to think more about this, I'm going to turn briefly to the text of Marx on primitive accumulation. That's how it's usually translated, but I'm going to translate it as originary accumulation. These parts of Capital I generally get read as a description of how violence is part of the transition in England from feudalism to capitalist modernity. They also get read analytically to think about the difference between really violent military and political violence, extra economic coercion, and then what Marx called the silent compulsion of economic arrangements. My readings follow scholars of settler political economy, such as Robert Nichols and Yellowknives Dene scholar Glenn Coulthard, who generalize originary accumulation as a process through which to think about how non-capitalist forms of life are forcibly incorporated into capitalist relations. Importantly, these scholars of settler political economy, to the difference of many other kinds of Marxist scholars, do not see this capture as total. If capital is circulation, the first thing it has to circulate are its own relations of production. Administrative power pretends to conquer the mediation of social relations, but it never fully does. I translate the German word Ursprünglich as originary because it expresses the repetition of a jumping off point for circulation, which has to happen again and again under stress from within and without, a constant rebirthing of the capital form and its accompanying violence made to appear as inactionable as the violence of a birth. And here I'm kind of alluding to a section in Marx in the Genesis of Industrial Capital, where he talks about capital coming into the world dripping from head to toe, from every pore with blood and dirt. So chapter 26 of Capital is titled The Secret of Originary Accumulation, but it's a secret not in the sense of people don't know about it. It's a secret in the sense of a cover story that nobody believes, like a fairy tale. And this is it, a fairy tale about the origins of property, how the wealthy got wealthy. Quote, "Long ago, there were two sorts of people. One, the diligent, intelligent, and above all, frugal elite. The other, lazy rascals, spending their substance and more in riotous living. Thus it came to pass that the former sort accumulated wealth and the latter sort had nothing to sell but their own skins. And from this original sin dates the poverty of the great majority, who despite all their labor have up to now nothing to sell but themselves, and the wealth of the few that increases constantly, although they have long since ceased to work. Such insipid childishness is every day preached to us in defense of property. In actual history, as is well known, and the word is bekanntlich, so it's obvious that it's something everybody knows, like notorious, conquest, enslavement, robbery, murder, in short, force, continue to play the greatest role. Right and hard work were, from von jeher is the word he uses, always already, the sole means of enrichment, naturally with the exception each time of this year. In reality, the methods of originary accumulation are anything but idyllic." So I like to cite this passage, which might sound familiar to you, right, as a trace in the text of Marx that all capitalism is racial capitalism, right? It's a tale of capitalism's original diversity, the lazy and the virtuous, right? Which kind of captures what I think of as the trick of racialization. Capital cannot be capital unless it produces and moves through relations of severe inequality among human groups, creditors and debtors, landlords, those dispossessed of land, right? And racism enshrines the inequality that capitalism requires. Just as fictions of unequal human worth or capacity, that is race, fictions of unequal human worth or capacity, coordinate and justify capitalism's asymmetry, so too does administration according to the logics of property and appropriation, not only in the past, but in the present and in the anticipated future. As the passage says, the passage tells us, right and hard work were always already the sole means of enrichment, naturally the exception each time of this year. And I think of this as the as-if of administration. The violence of the present is always able to be put into a state of exception when it seems to contradict the right and hard work, ownership and possessive individualism that vouchsafes the rightness and inevitability of how wealth accrues and to whom. And this recursivity, this originary move, right, that's part of the administrative power I'm talking about, is similar to something Aileen Morton Robinson writes about as the white possessive. And that's the process through which the materiality of significations, like buildings that seem to have owners, like deeds that seem to, give something to somebody. It's the very materiality of these significations that are perceived as evidence of ownership by those who have already taken possession, right? By those who have already stolen them. Administrative forms allow reigning regimes of capital to appear to themselves to get away with it again and again as they seek to mediate social relations and appear to conform them for accumulation through circulation's realization effect.